Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our June webinar. We're fortunate enough to have Daryl and David from ENVU, the new acquisition into ENVU. So they'll give a bit of a business update on how their business is going to move forward, and also they're going to do the training, the Nozzle application training as well. So yeah, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll run some questions at the end. If you have any questions around the ENVU business or the presentation itself. Let's just see if I can change my slides. There we go. So just a couple of quick things from me for this month. So we've just launched a couple of days ago a last chance warehouse clearance, which is now on the website. So if you're on our website, you get into the specials. There's a drop down there for the warehouse clearance, and at the moment there's about 32 products there that are on or a kind of a warehouse clearance deal. Some things that maybe we're overstocked in, and other things that we might be at the end of the line. They might be at the end of the life and obsolete products. So you can have a look through the clearance warehouse if there's something there that might suit you. Couple of new products a new product for us. We've just imported the first of our fully stainless steel sprayers. So typically our B&G sprayers that we import are stainless steel tanks, but the pump tube and the pickup tubes are generally brass. This is a fully stainless unit, so it's a 1 gallon 4 litre unit. It comes with a stainless steel pickup tube as well as a stainless steel pump. And it's also got the 4-way tip on it as well. So it's a really high-end sprayer. We've now got them in stock and they're available around the country. So you're able to get access to those with the green top and bottom. So it looks kind of similar to the 5 litre, but it is a higher quality unit. We've just moved some stock through the business as well, so we're now on to the new Thermador bottle, which is the HE bottles now going from the 2.34 litre down to the 2 litre bottle in the eco packaging. So that's now available on the website and available in the stores. I think we've got some stock around the country of the 2.34 litres, but most of are carrying the 2 litre stock now as well. So just a quick update on that. Just the deals for this month. So there's a couple of BSF deals for this month. So if you buy a carton of the Thermador HE or the residual, there's a $200 gift card. That's to the end of the month. So you can still order that today or Monday to get that deal. And also the Trelona, if you buy 9 cartons, you get a free carton as well. And that can be accessed until the end of the month as well. So if you haven't placed your orders for that, they're there. Also, there's an ENVU deal for this month, which is quite appropriate since we're doing an ENVU presentation. Spend over $500, and that comes with a free bottle of Tempered. Yeah, free bottle of Tempered with that. And also ENVU have donated one of the B&G pressure tank tops, which is my favourite piece of equipment at the moment, is a lucky door prize. So all the guys who are on the call at the end, we'll do a draw, and someone will win one of the B&G pressurized tank tops, which is worth about $450. This unit fits on top of the standard B&G tanks, and so you remove the hand pump and you swap out to the electric pump. It pressurizes up from about 31 psi and kicks back in at 26. So it continually keeps you within that range, that kind of sweet spot for the nozzles. When it comes to the charging, a full charge will get you about 100 litres of product, so it does last for quite a long time, and they're super reliable. We've had we've sold a lot of these in the last 12 months, and there's a really good feedback on them. So one of you will walk away with one of them free of charge today. So I think that's all I had in my list to do. So what I'll do is I'll stop sharing and I'll let David load up his slides, and then we should move on to the Dave and Daryl can quickly introduce themselves and then kick off their presentations.
Can you see that from your side, Mark?
Yeah, you just go into presentation mode, Dave. You're just on the
beautiful.
Yep, that's you. You're sorted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Mark, and welcome everyone. And thank you for taking the time out this morning to join us for this webinar. And it's myself and Dave Arnold. So for those that don't know me, I'm Daryl Swartz. I look after our sales and marketing and technical side of our ENVU business in Australia and New Zealand. And I'm joined by Dave Arnold, who is our technical sales manager for our professional pest management business in Australia and New Zealand also. So yeah, we're looking forward to just presenting an overview of ENVU and who we are, because we're getting some feedback here and there that I guess not many people fully understand who we are currently and what we're about. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of that, and then we'll move into some nozzle selection and spray application techniques, some training on that, which I think is pretty important. So who are we? We're ENVU. So ENVU is built off a legacy from Bayer Environmental Science. So I'm sure most people have heard of Bayer and Bayer Environmental Science. So in 2022, Bayer divested their environmental science business, and that came that was acquired by a private equity company called Cinven, and from there ENVU was created. So ENVU is a brand new standalone company. I say brand new, but for the size of our company, we're coming into the third year now. So October will be 3 years of ENVU. We're founded off basically the back of that acquisition, and we were founded and the business was created. And ENVU itself is a unique company. So we're a standalone company that operates in the environmental science space. So essentially our business is built off the back of the products that you all know and love. So some that might come to mind would be Tempered, MaxForce, and the Coupex range of products. Sizzlin, for example, are some of the products that we have in our portfolio. And we've just recently acquired the FMC's Global Specialty Solutions business. And that comes with a whole suite of products, and most importantly, some great people as well. So Dave has come across to our ENVU business from the FMC team. And with that comes a number of products as well, such as the Biflex range, Dragnet, and HomeGuard. So we've expanded our portfolio this year, and I think, what are we, 4 to 6 weeks in, I think, from that acquisition, and we're still finding our feet, but we're really excited about what the future has for us in regards to products and what services we can offer, both technically and from a product perspective as well. So we are really, really keen to work with all of you and the industry to continue to evolve our portfolio and ensure that we're creating resources and content and so on that helps you, and training and etc. that helps you with your business as well. Next slide, Dave. Sorry, mate. It's frozen on me. Give me 2 seconds. No worries. There you go. Got you. All right. So what makes us different? We're a trusted partner. So we've been in the industry for quite some time, albeit ENVU itself is only a fresh company. The team that we have around us, we're quite experienced. We've got quite a deep knowledge base from all aspects of pest control, be it pre-construction termites, be it post-construction commercial, general pest management, baiting, formulation technology, and so on. So we are quite a diverse company when it comes to the spaces that we play in. We are a standalone company. We're solely committed to the industries that we operate in. We don't have a large crop business or any other industry-backed business that sort of maybe muddy the waters for us a little bit. We are solely focused on the industries that we operate in, and we feel that we're an environmental visionary as well. We look at the environment. We understand the legislations, and we ensure that we work towards creating and producing products that are very effective, but also, I guess, would be trying to make sure that we're looking after the environment as best we can with application techniques and so on. So the industries that we're in are all about improving public health and the open spaces and so on. So they're spaces that we're all in. So making sure that we are creating products, services, and application techniques that complement those spaces to reduce pest pressure, disease pressure, and so on. So obviously professional pest management, we all understand that. That's the industry we're closely tied to. But we also have industrial vegetation management, which is railways, roadsides, and parklands, and so on. So that's for mostly weed and invasive species management. So pretty important around what railways and roadsides and so on. That's a fairly new business segment for us in Australia. Range and pasture, which is farm fence lines and control of invasive species in range and pasture. Forestry as well. So forestry is a pretty important segment for us. So ensuring that our national parks and so on aren't being invasively invaded by weeds and so on. Mosquito management, which is also very important, particularly in the APAC or some regions where disease like malaria, chikungunya, and so on are prevalent. We've got some really unique control methods and so on for mosquito management. Lawn and landscape sort of speaks to itself. Ornamental, so ornamental plants, and the golf segment is quite large for us in Australia as well. So we play in quite a few different spaces, but what we'll focus on today obviously is professional pest management. So we do have a global footprint, and an R&D team around the globe. So we are constantly looking at new application techniques, new formulation technology, and so on, trying to reduce the chemical load that's put into the environment by new application techniques, lower toxicity products, and so on. Around 6% of our top line is invested in innovation. So that's pretty large. A large amount of resource that's invested back into the industry. About 18% of our global team works within our innovation function at various locations around the world. 30% of our innovation team is made up of top-level scientists who are constantly looking at new methods and new products and services and so on. We've got 4 innovation hubs around the world, 2,000 plus product registrations in over 100 countries, and we publish between 5 and 10 scientific papers each year on different new innovation and so on. Now, the 4 innovation hubs that we have around the world, there's one in Monheim, which is Monheim, Lyon, which is in Europe and Germany. Clayton in the US, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Singapore. So there's quite a global presence that allow us to get different environmental situations to work with, to produce products and so on, but also gives us exposure to regulation around the world as well to see what may be coming. I mean, you may have heard that some places in Europe are very conscious about the types of active ingredients that are in the environment, and they are slowly removing access to some of these technologies. So we've got to create either whether it be new application techniques or work with the current technology that we have to ensure that we are meeting all the regulations and looking after obviously our footprint and also obviously the planet essentially. Next slide, Dave. So the products, we've got a number of brands that you may be familiar with. So as I mentioned before, Tempered, Sizzlin, and so on. We've also introduced the Biflex and HomeGuard range of products. You will see that those products in the bottle, I guess the branding will start to change over time. Although the packaging and the branding is changing, it is exactly the same product in the bottle still. So you will get no difference in the quality of the product that's out there and the support that you're getting from us already. We'll be able to improve that with the extra work, the extra team members that we have now that are there to support you in the market. So all the products will stay the same during the transition, but this is a gradual process. So you may see some Bayer branded or FMC branded product in the market still while this transition happens. And that will take, at least a few more months. Some of the products in the market already have changed, and you'll see that. And you may even see some bottle improvements as well. As we move forward, there will be some bottle improvements to ensure that the usability of the product is improved. Now, the team that we have around the country at the moment, there's myself, Jeff Einem, who is our Head of Technical Services, Dave Arnold, who's with us today. He's taken on the new role of Technical Sales Manager. We have Ken Ferguson in Queensland, who's our Territory Business Development Manager. Wendell, who you may know, and he's joined us on the call today, Territory Business Development Manager in New South Wales. And we've also got Daniel Bird, who's just joined us from FMC as well. So we have, combined, we have quite a large amount of knowledge, I guess you could call it, and experience, over 150 years of experience in the industries that we're playing in combined. So I think that is it from me, and I'll hand over to Dave for
Thanks, mate.
The content. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. Hopefully everyone's still here and still with us and ready to learn a bit more. So a bit of background on me. I guess it's really good to have a bit of an introduction to ENVU, where we're going, what our future looks like. For me, I want to give everyone a bit of confidence first on who I am. I come from 20 plus years within the industry. I come from a family-based business. I've run my own company. I've worked for multinationals within other chemical companies, as well as the large competitors out in the field. And today we want to try pull a lot of that information together to help you guys. So I definitely don't want to be sitting here singing a song. I want you guys to take the knowledge and start to utilize that within your businesses to firstly get better results out of the chemistry we're using, look at how we can improve what we're doing, and secondly, and probably the most important one, is how we can better look after our customers. So it's not always about spraying more chemical. Sometimes it's about changing our treatment method to get a better outcome for the customer. So that's pretty much myself. I am available all the time. Our phone numbers are on the website as well, which makes it easy to reach out. If I don't answer for any reason, I'm sorry. We're busy with everything going on, but I will get back to you. So looking at where we start. So where do we look to start with our integrated pest management? And this is probably the most important thing that we need to look at before we even look at chemical selection. So one of the most important things is we listen, and that comes from the first phone call. So when the customer sends us a inquiry, it's really important that the girls really quiz out what is the issue, where are they seeing it, and get as much information as they can from that client. It obviously helps when the technician gets to the site or the property to then try to identify what the actual source of the issue is. Personally, I don't know how many times I've had customers call, we've got the worst ant problem, and it's always with service calls. By the time the technician gets to site, they can't see anything and can't find anything. So it's really important to now, with the way that we are and the day and the age that we are, it's a lot easier to take photos and videos. So utilize that as part of the office to start recording those areas so the technicians have a better idea on what's there on site. So when we look at that, we start our inspection. Obviously, the most critical thing is our inspection, so we can work out our treatment plan, communicate that with the client, and then we can start going through the important things. So when we start to run through the cultural controls, physical controls, mechanical controls, a big thing I always say with these is to make sure that we document what's there as well. So if we're in a commercial kitchen, we're all, or I should say majority of us now have access to computer-based reports that we can input a photo. So if it's a commercial kitchen that cleanliness isn't great, take the photo, put it in the report, explain that if they don't improve the cleanliness, improve the routines, it's going to be really hard to control the pests, and then the reliance is back on the client to do that. It also does start to impact their warranties that we're offering when we're on site. So just be aware of that as we start to identify those areas. When we start looking at chemical control, and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail, and the most important thing is our follow-up, the review, and the communication. So that's the one that's going to stop the service calls. It's also going to help the customer to manage the expectations of what treatment we've carried out while we're on site. So as Daryl's just run over, we do have a very extensive product range. So, and this is what we've obviously got with ENVU, and then with the FMC GSS acquisition coming on board, it really has opened our portfolio. So we've got some really great tried and tested AIs and products. Some of these products are to the point where they're second and third generations actually using the products. So when we look at Tempered, I would say it's probably up there with the market leader that we see within the area. Sizzlin, which is our delta methrin, Aqua K, which is a really great product when we're looking at treatments of warehouses, things like that. And it's probably a product that's a little bit underrated at the moment. So we won't go into that today, but that's a topic for another time. Max Force range. So we look at our cockroach baits and also our ant gels as well. Very much tried, proven, tested. One of the biggest things I think we need to start looking at within our treatment process is the Staricide, the use of insect growth regulators. A really great option to help with the control and also the longevity in some of those areas. And then we start to go into our bifenthrin range. So our Biflex Aquamax, Biflex Ultra, and Micron. So we'll touch on a few of those things today. I'm just going to make sure that this plays properly as we go through. So we're just going to have a quick video on Tempered, and then we're going to break into a few of these other AIs. A little bit later in the presentation, I'll break down to treatment applications and things like that. So I'll hand you over to the video now.
Tempered 75.
Can you hear it, Mark?
It just stopped, but I did hear it. I could hear the sound.
Is it playing the sound?
No, it's not playing the video. Just stop and start again.
Is that going now?
It's just running slow, I think. Can you hear that, Patrick?
No, it's just a bit slow and can't really hear the volume.
Yes. There was sound there, was there?
Yeah, there was a little bit of sound at the start.
All right, just let me try this and I'll jump back in.
Spiders,
That's better.
fleas, and bedbugs. Tempered 75 offers
Yep,
a
good.
unique dual mode of action
Yep.
by combining two powerful and effective residual insecticides, beta-cyfluthrin and imidacloprid. A process called homogenized active synergy, or HAS, combines the two active ingredients in
Sorry, guys, I don't know what just happened then.
the nicotinic receptors, opening voltage-sensitive sodium channels. This acts to intensify the action and potency of beta-cyfluthrin, a sodium channel toxin, the second mode of action in Tempered 75 insecticide. Beta-cyfluthrin binds to sodium channels that are open or activated and holds them open, therefore disrupting the function of neurons. This unique complementary combination delivers powerful and effective control of pests. This guarantees greater stability in your spray mix and better coverage of the treated surface, which means the pest is exposed to both actives equally. Tempered is a highly efficacious and cost-effective insecticide with a proven track record around the world. Its water-based formulation with two modes of action allow use indoors and outdoors to control a wide range of insect pests. It has a unique fast action combined with a long residual control. That's up to 28 days when applied preventatively. It's a versatile product that performs at any stage of the pest life cycle. Unlock the power of Tempered 75 insecticide today.
So that gives us a bit of an idea on Tempered. So Tempered is an SC formulation. So we're going to go a little bit more now into formulations. So I want to touch firstly on Biflex. So when we look at our bifenthrin options that we have, so Biflex Aquamax on our left-hand side of the screen, and then we've got Biflex Ultra on the right hand, which is an EC formulation. So they're important things to remember when we're looking at, I guess, not just the chemistry. So both of these are bifenthrin. They're just in a different formulation. So Biflex SC being water-based, odorless. One of the negatives with an SC is we need to make sure we have constant agitation. So The thing with this is if we look at we'll look at a standard B&G sprayer, that is as simple as shaking the formulation as we're going through. Otherwise, we're going to end up with inconsistencies with our spray rates. So what that tends to mean is if we tip the AI in the top and it starts to sink, it's going to fall out of suspension as it sits to the bottom. So as we're spraying out of that 5 litres, we can end up with inconsistencies within that spray mix if we don't agitate. So it's very important to make sure we mix as per what we need and that we're not storing those products overnight. And that's a big thing with that. So when we look at an EC formulation, and I'll break these down a little bit more in the coming slides so you can visually see it as well. So an EC is a solvent-based formulation. It's got very low odors and it requires minimal agitation. And there's some big positives with this, and we'll look at the particle sizes with these so we can start to understand where these products would fit better within our treatment regime. So looking at the molecule size, so this is obviously magnified. You're not going to see this sticking on a customer's house. But when we look at the nanometer size of these suspension concentrates, you can see the left-hand side, the Biflex Aquamuch is a very large molecule. When we look at the emulsifier concentrate on the right-hand side, it's a lot smaller in its size. And why does that happen? So some of the big things to remember is an SC formulation is a suspension of bifenthrin in water. So it's the molecule suspended within the water concentrate itself, versus what we look at with an EC, which is dissolved with hydrocarbons, and the emulsifier allows it to mix with the water. So we're able to get the molecule size a lot slower. And the next slide is really important to understand the difference between the actual formulations and why it's important with formulation. So we're going to look firstly at an EC. So this is a porous surface. So when we talk about porous, we're talking about a brick surface, a rendered surface, something like that of that degree. So when we do our standard application over the top, because it's a smaller molecule, the molecule is going to start to sit within all those ridges. So once we introduce the pest, and we've got a beautiful cockroach leg here, it's obviously going to be a lot smaller amount of dose that it picks up. If it's on a painted surface, it's obviously going to be a lot more available on that surface, but on a porous, it's going to soak in a little bit deeper. So let's compare that to what we look at with an SC. So when we look at spraying that molecule, because of the larger particle sizes within it, you can see how it sits more on the surface. So we talk about a more bioavailability to the pest as they're moving over. So it doesn't necessarily mean one is better or worse than the other, but it's just the way that the formulation gets left on the surface, and especially important when we're looking at what pest we're treating. So if we're looking at different pests, it may be better to use a different formulation of the same active ingredient. So, and we'll touch on that now when we look at the soil particles. So when we look at the way that the molecule sits around a soil particle, so when we look at the center of this slide, that is what we're looking at with a molecule of an organic matter. So let's call it a molecule of a grain of sand. And then we're talking about how the particle of bifenthrin is getting left around that. So when we look at the SC formulation, we can see that it's relatively large and the particles settle into the soil once the emulsion dries. So it's not a fully consistent treatment that's around that soil particle. It may be okay depending on what we're treating, but when we look at this, when we say a termite treatment, this is where the EC formulation is going to offer a lot of benefits when we look at that soil treatment. So it crystallizes and forms a film over the soil particles, and that's because that emulsifier dissolves off. So it offers us a lot greater treatment in that area. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an in-depth idea on formulations. So we do have different formulations outside of just the ECSC, but it just gives you a bit of an idea on what's there. Looking at one of our most important things, and we're going to touch at the back end of this presentation into staining and how we can get the most out of our treatments. This one here, we just got to be really mindful when we do select our product that we're making sure that our nozzles are fit for purpose. So maintenance is a really big thing, and we're going to touch on that as well. We get common complaints with staining, spraying past the point of runoff. And I think one of the big things I just want to touch on here, Mark touched on it a little bit before, is about the pressures. So there's no point choosing the right tip that's here if we don't have the equipment that is applying at the right pressure. So when we look at our standard, I guess we'll pick on backpack sprayers because they're a little bit more common in the market at the moment. The pressures that come out of those backpack sprayers can range from 25 psi to 150 psi. So the same thing happens when we look at a pneumatic sprayer that we're pumping up by hand. It's obviously going to fluctuate. So it considered a massive psi when we're pumping it really hard and really leaning down on the plunger. And as that becomes less chemical or mixture, we're losing the pressure within that, and that's why it needs to keep being pumped. So moving forward, a big thing I want to just touch on before we break into a video on the nozzle tips is the pressure is super important. So the T-jets, we want to be sitting somewhere between, ideal for what we're looking at here is about the 35 to 40 psi, but we can range with those T-jets from about 29 to 52 psi, depending on what T-jet we've actually chosen. So the important thing that we'll touch on is the PSI. So I'll leave this video to give you a bit more in-depth into spray tips and spray patterns, and then we'll touch a little bit more on staining.
You want to start again, Dave?
Nozzle that should be considered for
got it.
correct spray applications for your pest control treatments. I've selected 5 here, which are the most common types of nozzle that should be used or considered for correct spray application. We've got 3 flat fan nozzles and we have 2 adjustable nozzles. The flat fans that we're talking about are the 4501, the 6502 and the 6504. We've also got 2 cone nozzles, adjustable nozzles. One is a pin stream that can be used for external applications, possibly to treat wasp nests up high or to treat cracks or crevices for spiders. We've also got the adjustable cone nozzle, and that could be used for situations such as flooding, soil areas or dirt areas for fleas or something of the like.
Let's look first at the 4001 T-jet or fan nozzle. The 4001 means the 40 relates to the 40-degree spray angle, and 0.1 is the US gallons that are produced per minute at 35 to 40 psi. That's about 380 mils per minute. So to summarise, the 4001 T-jet or fan nozzle offers a 40-degree spray angle, delivering 380 mils per minute. This is ideal for any general pest indoor treatments.
So inside the house, in the kitchen, or any areas that are inside and on non-porous surfaces, we should be selecting a 4001 nozzle. Again, correct spray angle and output rate. So treating skirting boards and areas around the base of the wall for whatever pests you're treating for. And we should be using a lower output rate nozzle such as a 4001. So we're not spraying past the point of runoff and causing a mess with staining.
Let's look next at the 6502 T-jet or fan nozzle. The 6502 means 65-degree spray angle, and the 0.2 is the US gallons, which equates approximately to 760 mils per minute at 35 to 40 psi. So to summarise, the 6502 T-jet or fan nozzle offers a 65-degree spray angle at 760 mils per minute. This is ideal for outdoor treatments.
We've come outside and we've discovered we're dealing with a few different surfaces here on the external wall. This surface here looks like an aluminium frame that's been powder coated. The powder coat over time has gone a little bit chalky or a little bit worn. So very easy to damage even with just water, especially if you're applying past the point of runoff. Right next to that we have, this looks like a concrete tilt panel building that's been painted. So again, the paint is exposed to a lot of sunlight on this side of the building. Gone chalky over time. Very important not to spray past the point of runoff, otherwise you risk damaging the surface. Again, next to this, we have a colour bond roller door, such as a garage door, for example. And over time, it's gone chalky as well. So the sun does damage surfaces quite badly. And as soon as you wet these surfaces and go past the point of runoff, you can risk damaging them. For this situation, we really only want to have one nozzle for the entire external treatment. So we're looking at the 6502, and this would be for non-porous applications to the external of the building.
Changing your spray nozzle to the one most appropriate to the task may seem a hassle when trying to get the job done and on to the next customer. However, using the right spray tip means a better job, happier customers, and savings in chemical costs and callbacks.
So that gives us a bit of insight into the spray tips, selections, things like that. So I want to touch back on what we were saying before with the formulations. So formulations are one part. Our spray equipment is super important, and probably the most important thing to make sure that we actually get effective treatments time and time again is our maintenance. So it's something, especially through summer, that we all become a little bit slack on, but it's the biggest thing that's going to cause us issues on the back end. So maintaining the equipment is really, really important. We'll touch on that a little bit more, and the ongoing maintenance is the most critical thing. So looking at our filters, how often should we change them? How often should we clean them? And this can be inline filters as well as spray trigger filters, and sometimes you'll have other filters within those spray equipment as well. So make sure you know and understand your equipment, and that is one of the most important things you can do. Obviously, by having the understanding of how the equipment's put together, if there is an issue when you're on site, you're able to fix things quickly. When we were talking before about the spray tips and the different T-jets, it can be handy to have different equipment. So it might be a process where you've got two backpack sprayers that both do external treatments, but they're set up predominantly with different tips for different application and molecules going inside them. So it just means that you're cutting down your contact, you're cutting down your wastage time, and it may be something that you identify that with your treatment process at the beginning with Mrs. Jones about what's the property, what's the issue, and to work out that treatment plan long term. So when we look at our filters, it's especially when we're using SC or granulars, we need to look at cleaning them daily. I know it's a pain, but it's really important to make sure that we don't get gunk buildup. Otherwise, you'll start to reduce the performance of that molecule as it goes through. So, and I'll touch on this in the next slide to give you a bit of an idea on what's there. If we're using bulk tanks, it's important to make sure that they are on agitation, and we do sweep out the bottom. One of the big things with our bulk tanks is they've got ridges in the bottom, which can obviously build up and hold a lot of AI as it falls out of suspension. So just make sure that we really work on our agitation with that formulation. So looking at this one here, so this is inline filters that have been sprayed. Not to pick on anything here, we've tried to say with what we're kind of looking at with our own products. So you can see on the left-hand side is a generic bifenthrin that's gone through. So this was 100 litres put through an inline filter. It can give you a bit of an idea on the gunk buildup, what's been stripped out. When we look at the Biflex Aqua SC, there is some buildup that can form there. And then when we look at our Biflex Ultra, that's down to that formulation again. So when we look at the formulation binding with the water, with the emulsifiers, it gives us that more consistent treatment. Where when we look at an SC formulation, because it's suspended within the water, it can have this issue where it does grab and stick hold of things. So agitation and mixing is really, really critical with those formulations. It doesn't matter if it's what we've talked about or if it's something else. That's one of the most important things to think of. When we start to look at problem jobs and issues on site, one thing that we always do look at is the equipment, and then also where it was within the spray mix. So if it's the initial bit of the spray mix, it may be really low, it could be really high depending on how it's been mixed, and that changes as well. If you've mixed for the first job to do the whole day and you've got suspension that's falling out and you haven't re-agitated, by the time you get to the end of the day, you may end up with a really over-spiked mix because the agitation isn't through the whole water-based solution that we're trying to treat. So just be mindful of those key things. I want to touch on something that no one ever likes to hear now. So we're going to look at the staining aspect when we look at our treatments. And to be honest, it's not always a chemical that's doing a staining. Quite often, if we look at a pH in a water, it is enough to stain a surface as well. So we need to really be mindful with what we're treating, where we're treating, and how we're treating those surfaces. So if a big one that we always get complaints on at the moment, and it's definitely a more north-based issue in Australia, is when we start coming into the hotter climates, we end up with a lot of fading and degradation on darker coloured powder-coated surfaces. So this can be garage doors, fences, decorative timber, decorative steel areas. Once that gets a lot of sun impact in that, it will break down those surfaces. So, and that's especially essential with powder coated dark surfaces. So the second part to that is if they are damaged and they're sitting there in hot heat. So that means in the afternoon, if we hit where I'm based in Queensland, we've got a garage door or a fence that's sitting in the afternoon heat. It's going to be hotter than the ambient temperature we're treating at. So that could be 40+ degrees on some of those surfaces without any issues. Anything we spray on that is going to stain that area. So just be mindful of that. And it's not so much that it didn't on the last job. The more treatments we do, the more that we are at risk with the staining issues. So just be mindful of what you're treating. If you're worried and concerned, look at changing the treatment process that you're going to do in those areas. It doesn't mean the customer's still not getting a great job. It just means we change our process slightly to get the same result. So looking at the surfaces that will stain, we've sort of covered off the darker coloured powder coated areas. You can see here from the photos, if it's a painted or sealants will sometimes stain, and the big one is varnished and polished surfaces. The big thing to help minimize this is by the spray tips. So looking at your nozzles to suit your formulations, plus your equipment to assist with keeping that consistent spray PSI pressure to maintain that over the treatment. Obviously looking at a good integrated pest management approach is going to help. And the biggest, most important one is never spray past the point of runoff. As soon as you start getting to that, staining is more critical, is going to be more visual because you're going to end up with the run marks and everything else in those areas. So not to harp on it, but it's just something that we've got to be mindful of because as we do more treatments, the risk obviously does increase with those formulations. So a little bit of a fun one to touch on, and then I'll hand back over to Mark. So as part of everyone being here today, ENVU's put up a B&G pressurized tank topper. So the reason that we looked at this is when we look at what we're talking about today, I feel that one of the biggest things we can do as a business owner, as a technician, is really improve our equipment to make sure that we're getting sufficient treatments done. So it's something that we feel is going to help you guys when you're out. I'm not trying to plug it. I don't get any kickbacks from B&G or Globe on these, but they are a really great unit to help assist with those treatments. We spend a lot of money on the torches and fancy gadgets and everything else, but something that you're going to use quite frequently, as in our B&G sprayers. This is going to be a great addition to your business. So I'd like to thank you all for what's there. I will pass back over to Mark now. I will just change my mic, Mark, sorry. There you go. I can hear you again now. So I will pass back over to Mark. Did you want to put your slides back up there, Mark?
No, that's all right. If you just go back to your slide, your previous slide with the winner, we're just going to draw that winner. Patrick will do that in the background. But while we're doing that, we'll just if there's any questions, we'll just get them out of the way first. I'll just jump in and see if there's any questions. If anybody wants to put the hand up or take the mic off and ask a question, fire away. I think there was a few good points you made there on that. Obviously, pressure's a big thing. Recently, we had a customer who wanted a couple of B&Gs set up with a pressure gauge on them, so you can see the pressure inside the B&G. And the way that I would normally pump up a B&G is obviously to inflate it. You feel a bit of pressure on the handle, and the last push of the handle, you've kind of got your body weight on and you lock it. That's typically how I always pumped up a B&G. Believe it or not, that's actually close to 70 psi when you do that. So you're way ahead of the pressure you need for those nozzles. And as Dave says, you need depending on the nozzle, you need somewhere between the kind of low 30s to maybe 40s psi. So we don't need 70. So anytime you're running at a super high pressure, you're wearing the nozzle out faster. You just don't get the same spray pattern until you get to that sweet spot. So that was just my kind of feedback on that, I guess. I think there's somebody just put a quick question in the chat.
That was a question that just came up. Sorry.
Yep. So it says so it's asking the question, 4001 fan nozzle best for inside? If so, why do all sprayers come with a standard cone nozzle? I can answer that second part in a minute, but
Yeah.
I'll let you take the fan question.
I'll
Dave.
answer the first part. A 4001 with the right pressure is definitely going to be the best for inside. Why the spray equipment come with that, I don't know, and that's a good question for Mark. So I'm going to handball that one back over. So
yeah, sure. So, yes, I think that 4001 is obviously the 0.1 being 0.1 of a gallon per minute, so that's the lowest of the nozzles. So generally those nozzles go up in that. So I guess if you're using a 4001, you've got that 40 degrees fan spray, and you're running at the lowest volume through that, providing you've got the right pressure. I guess when I look at our range, we have a lot of the sprayers do get sold with a cone nozzle, and I think that's typically because the cone nozzles are a bit cheaper, and when you're selling a sprayer at that price point, that tends to be an issue. I guess that's one of the things that's a bit different to the sprayer that we're now doing. The one that we've made is our standard 4 litre sprayer. That one actually comes with a variable tip on it, so you can actually run two fan sprays. One's a bit more volume. I think they're similar to a 0.1 and a 0.2. But I know we've introduced it, and I know people have already said, "Oh, why does it not come with cone jet?" Because people prefer cone jets. So I think certainly for internal use, the cone jets, for me, it's almost like having two sprayers, and it's almost like having two fans back to back. So, you get the first, as the cone goes through, sometimes you're just getting that, especially internally, it's just too much product for an internal use. So, yeah, we're happy to change those nozzles over, but it's been a kind of historic thing.
Looks like there's another question coming, Mark.
Yep, there's a question. Can we use
I'll read it out
nozzle
just so everyone can see it. Can we use the nozzle on any brass wand or only a B&G sprayer? So with the tips, they will be able to be adapted to any sprayer that's there. You're definitely going to have to want to talk to Globe about making sure that they've got the adapters. So it's probably a better one for Mark to answer, and I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, so we've got adapters that you can take the T-Jet nozzles. So one of the issues we've had with some of the flow zone equipment is that they will accept a T-Jet nozzle, but they tend to have problems with the pump sometimes when you're running the higher pressure pumps on the lower nozzles. So we've had a few issues with that. We actually hear the pump starting to growl because you're asking that high pressure pump to push through too small an orifice on the nozzle. But yeah, effectively you can switch and swap those. We sell all the T-Jets, we sell all the parts. Don't ask me the part numbers, but we sell all of that stuff. We can modify other sprayers or things to have the T-Jets on them as well, for sure. That's cool. Let's see if there's any other questions pop up.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, guys. I'd rather be here to help you, and Mark's the same. So
yeah, for sure. Oh, that's cool.
Do you want to try pass over to Patrick and get him to do the spin of the wheel? And
yeah, we can do the draw. Yeah, I think the stuff that, I mean, I know that I have the same issues as you have, Dave, as people having issues with spraying, having staining issues. And a lot of those staining issues come from, maybe the incorrect nozzles or sometimes the wrong mix of the products and stuff. So it's important that we stick to the label. We had a customer recently who was trying to sort a big problem out for a customer and was doubling the strength of the chemical to give them a hand up, and all they did was stain the whole property. So we have to be super careful. We stick to the label and use the best equipment that you can, the best pressures, the right nozzle applications to get that product onto the surface, so we don't pass that point of runoff. Just one more question there.
So they're coming in thick and fast.
Yeah. So there's another question there. Hey, can I please have the contact details of the representative who can go over the training materials and ensure we're on point with nozzle selection and formulation type? So, yeah, I can follow up with that, and I can put you in contact with Dave or the guys if it needs to do that. And the last question I've got here is, what happens when you mix SCs in your tank and right after use an EC? Does it affect the treatment?
It's a good question, Willie.
Yep.
When we look at, say, it's not going to be such an issue when you're running a different formulation. So I'll pick on what we have initially to start with. So if I run a bifenthrin SC and then putting an EC vice versa, it's not going to change a lot of the outcome. Still make sure that you're cleaning your equipment. One thing that could happen is if you've put an SC through first and then you're running an EC, it may strip some of that AI out of the filters. That's probably your only issue you just need to be mindful of. So clean that before you do it. If we look at a different alternative with that, a big thing with our spray equipment is making sure that we're not cross-contaminating everything all the time. So label's an important one. And I'll touch on this because we get phone calls on it all the time. We're trying to get a great treatment done externally. I'm going to mix my bifenthrin and I'll pick on a competitor's product, Termidor, together to get do one pass and have it done. It's not on label for anything like that. So we got to make sure we're staying to the labels, try to have separate equipment for those treatments because you're treating different areas. You're going to get residuals build up. To make sure that you don't have to clean every time, I would recommend separate equipment for those areas. That would be the best way.
Yeah. Between sort of repellent and non-repellent.
Yep.
For instance, yeah. Okay. No, that's cool. Awesome stuff. That's all good.
I'll come back to you on that one, Wendell, because when we look at internal cornice, so there's a question around it's what would be the best nozzle be for internal SC treatments. I personally, and this is a cornice internal treatment, I would potentially be looking at different formulations. So not looking at using a sprayer to treat those, but actually going back to an aerosol or something like that that's going to really minimize the risk of dripping, staining. You're going to get a much better. So there's a few options out there for that, and that's probably a better way of re-looking at your standard operating procedure to get a better treatment in that area. There are a lot of guys that spray cornices, but it can come with a lot of risk, and it also can come with, and my biggest fear with it is what's underneath it. So when we're spraying up high, there's always potential of drift on the dog bowl, the fish tank, the handbag, whatever it may be. So yeah, that's where I kind of recommend not doing internal high level sprays.
It's kind of down fine enough. Recommendation, what's your recommendation regarding calibrating spray units, new products daily, I think? Yep.
Calibrating your spray units, it's going to be more down to the brands. So it may be something that Mark can probably help with a little bit more on that. You're probably a bit more familiar with what brands are going to offer that.
Yeah.
As Mark was saying before, definitely the PSI tests are going to be really handy for that. So there's lots of inline PSIs you can use now. Once you've kind of set it for your equipment, you should be pretty right from there. It's definitely going to be different if you're still hand pumping your B&G, like what Mark said. You'll pump that up to 70. It'll disappear really quickly because there's not much volume of pressure holding in that small area. But obviously it's going to change as you're in the bottom of your tank. You've got a lot more area to fill that with a PSI and pressure.
Yeah. I guess with calibration it's always difficult because you've got the pressure, you've got the type of nozzle, and you've got the speed that you're walking at as well to get that correct application. So I guess doing even just running some testing on that. We used to do large sites. We'd do some different, because we had so many variables, we'd do some testing just with water to see what the application rate was going to be over larger distances to give an idea of how long, the pace rate and how everything was going to operate. There's quite a few variables on that one. So yeah, it's good question. Yeah. Well, that's us for this month's webinar. So thank you to David and Daryl for taking that for us. That was awesome. We don't have one plan for next month, but we'll be back in August. And we'll put in we'll get that organised for the August one and send the invites out as usual. So thanks again for attending, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.